Whenever you're ready, Naomi.
Okay. Hi everybody. Today we'll be talking about fisheries co-management success stories with case studies in the Beaufort Sea and Vanuatu.
Yeah, so our first example in the global north is the Beaufort Sea in northern Canada. So they kind of outline what co-management means to them is long-term management structure, which is established by a treaty agreement and permits Aboriginal people to share management responsibilities with governments. So in this case, it's the Inuvialuit people, which is the Inuvialuit Final Agreement, the IFA, which was signed in 1984. It was a comprehensive land claim agreement for guaranteed rights from the government of Canada. Since then, the Inuvialuit people and the government of Canada have been involved in some way or another in co-management. So the current iteration, which we're focusing on, is the Beaufort Sea Integrated Fisheries Management Framework, which parties include the DFO and different Inuvialuit councils representing economic, social, cultural, and wildlife well-being, along with the Fisheries Joint Management Committee, which was the previous iteration of co-management. So the fisheries around here are really important to the Inuvialuit for sustenance fishing, and they include beluga, bowhead whales, ringed seals, Arctic, and dollyvarden char. There's a large history of exploitation by settlers, and with climate change freeing up the Arctic Ocean from high ice coverage, there's more commercial fishing potential, which the Inuvialuit are afraid of destroying their stocks if not properly managed, as they themselves would also like to set up small-scale commercial fisheries. The framework's goal is to ensure sustainable management and orderly use and development of current and future fisheries, and they outline a proactive framework for how any new commercial fisheries would be managed by co-managers. They do this through a decision key, which is a decision support tool. It's clear and explicit for stakeholders, incorporates precautionary approach, ecosystem-based management, and meets co-management, conservation, and sustainable use obligations outlined in the Inuvialuit Final Agreement, as well as the Fisheries and Oceans Act and SARA, the Species at Risk Act. The decision key outlines roles for each stakeholder of the framework and asks 10 questions for incoming commercial interests, which represents concerns, interests, and responsibilities of the co-managers. As a measure of success for this framework, we looked at a paper published in 2021 from the Government of Canada, which outlined a specific fishery in this framework, which is the dollyvarden char, which is the photo here. They concluded that the dollyvarden populations have been managed effectively and monitored by local working groups and the DFO based on sustainable harvesting principles core to the Inuvialuit cultures. There's leadership and participation from community harvesters, strong working relationships, and tailored research and monitoring programs, which all contribute to adaptive co-management of the fisheries. This case study is a form of mature co-management. It's going on for a while, and it's a success story in our eyes.
So for the Global South case study, we'll be looking at sea cucumber fisheries in Vanuatu, which is an island nation in the South Pacific. There are many small-scale sea cucumber fisheries in Vanuatu, and dried sea cucumbers are used in cooking and sold throughout Asia. Sea cucumber overexploitation came to a head in 2008 when there was a sharp decline in sea cucumber stocks. And there was some co-management prior to the collapse, but the collapse occurring showed that it wasn't working well, and so it was overhauled in 2008. And co-management here essentially means collaboration between communities, government, and fisheries management to meet everyone's goals. And the goals of this project specifically were to ensure fisheries are ecologically sustainable, maximize economic returns for communities, and continue to monitor sea cucumber populations. So there are many groups involved in the co-management plan, but I'll just go over the key players, which include the Fisheries Management Advisory Council. This is comprised of representatives of sea cucumber companies, provincial governments, resource owners, and communities. And then there's also the Vanuatu Fisheries Department and the community and license holders themselves. So the outcomes of the co-management plan, in the first 5 years, a total closure was put into place. And in this time, there was a 167% increase in total stock biomass. And then in 2014, the plan was once again updated, and this ties into the spiral figure here, where management is adapted based on the changing needs of the stocks and of the community, which is a big reason why this is a success story. So now there are closures with limited open seasons and a recommended total allowable catch for the open season that will keep sea cucumber populations at sustainable levels. And the community here has constitutional ownership rights over reefs, so they get the final say on any fisheries recommendations and decide whether to harvest and how much to harvest in the open season. And a 2019 study found that out of 11 criteria for success, 10 improved under co-management. and that when consulted, people were more motivated and incentivized to cooperate. And this current plan goes through 2024, so we'll see what updates they make for the next one. We can go to the next slide, yeah. So comparing these two case studies, one of the major differences was the reason for co-management. So in the Global South, co-management was implemented as a reaction to over-exploitation and an attempt to allow stocks to recover to a place where the community could sustainably harvest them again. Whereas in the Global North, co-management was put into place as a preemptive measure, as they were anticipating commercial interests entering the area and wanted to protect fish stocks. Another difference is with community involvement. In the Global South, communities are defined less clearly, and communities and resource owners are clumped together in management plans. Whereas in the Global North, each community elects members to a board of directors to represent them and their interests, so things are a bit more structured and defined.
The last difference we're going to outline is NGO involvement. So in the Global North example with the Inuvialuit people, the Oceans North Canada, an environmental NGO based out of the US, I think, or funding out of the US, was involved, and there was some skepticism, but after like a lot of participation, there's a lot of trust that was involved, and that worked out really well, but we don't see that in the Global South case. In terms of similarities for this co-management, for both these co-management frameworks, we saw that Indigenous constitutional rights was super important to kind of get the government kicking in terms of actually sharing some of that responsibility, and maybe is a sign of like you need these constitutional rights to push for these successful co-management frameworks. Overall, we saw in both of these cases that co-management and the context of both of these situations were very different. One was protecting something that might happen, and one was in response to something that's already happened, but co-management seemed like a really good solution for both. And it's not like a one-size-fits-all solution, which I know a lot of people are looking for right now with a lot of our climate change problems and fishery problems, but it worked well, and it seems very adaptive to a lot of different solutions. And just these photos here, the Vanuatuan flag and the Gyre falcon, which is the logo of the Inuvialuit people. And that is it.